Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to get as much value as you can out of heroic moves in common situations, right? The first question you might have is, why am I doing this in Tabletop Simulator rather than with real models? And the reason for that is I don't have access to those kind of resources, right? So we're going to do it like that. I'll quickly explain what we're looking at just to make things easier, right? This is Rivendell, Glorfindel here, and there's Eristor, and there's a captain somewhere. Those are the main things you need to know. The rest looks pretty, you can tell what it is. This is Halls of Thranduil. Got some archers, some palace guard here, these golden guys. Thranduil's here, Legolas is here. There's a captain here, right? Now, I'm going to use both sides as examples of things you can do. But the first thing I should say is, a very good player once told me the best way they know if they're playing a good player, like the way they identify if they're playing a good player, is seeing someone set up a heroic move, like a preemptive heroic move, basically. Setting up heroic moves a turn in advance, potential heroic moves, right? So, like, if we start here, this is important, right? In situations that allow, like when you can be grouped, as you can see, this captain is probably the guy I would most want to call a heroic move on, because he really only has heroic move in March. And Eristor, he's got strike. I'm willing to. I'd prefer to keep might on him in case that becomes relevant. Glorfindel, lots of reasons to not want to spend might on moves with him, right? So this captain, I keep him in a position that's going to hit most or all of my guys, but most importantly, it's going to hit both of my important heroes, right? So just keep that in mind. And you might be wondering why there's some like kind of gaps in the lines here. Very simple. Both sides have a lot of shooting. Both sides don't want their heroes to get shot, okay? So they're hiding in the back. But as lines clash, they'll move in. You'll see here there's a gap for Glorfindel that's preemptively set up. Some 1-inch gaps here for the other heroes. And on this side as well, you see all the heroes have gaps that they can come through the lines. It's also, so even without shooting, it's also so they don't get like piled on in the initial charge if they're not the ones charging, right? You wouldn't want, if Legolas was here, you wouldn't want, oh, Rivendell wins priority or a move or whatever, and, bam. Like, that's going to end badly. So you kind of want to be, unchargeable for the first round of combat at least, right? But anyway, I'm going to set this up as if Halls of Thranduil has priority here, so they're going to be the ones charging, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the Halls player has moved up and engaged fully. It's looking like this before the Rivendell player has done their moves. As a Rivendell player, what do I want to do here, right? One thing I'll say about this matchup, which is why this is going to be relevant, is I think in a straight up line versus line battle in this situation, statistically, the Rivendell player is going to lose, right? Because firstly, a good amount of fight 6 to kind of have a better chance of winning more fights around Thranduil, which Rivendell doesn't have so much of an answer for. They don't have their own kind of fight 6 warriors, right? And on top of that, this +1 to wound bubble that Thranduil gives to his warriors is really good, right? Legolas is obviously a great model as well. And glaives are amazing, really. They're one of the best weapons in the game, for sure, warrior weapons, right? So I feel like in a straight up battle line fight, statistically I'll lose, right? It's not that far fetched that maybe you just roll well and win, but you don't want to be leaving things up to chance where you don't have to, right? The best way to be consistent is to not leave things up to chance as much as you can avoid it, right? So what's my plan here? Of course, we're preempting a heroic move for next turn, right? We're setting up for a potential heroic move next turn, which means Glorfindel's going to be very important, the most important. And we've got Aristor in here as well, which, you know, maybe he'll be useful. But Glorfindel just goes in here. All he can really do is fight one guy, right? I mean, right now, he can technically see this guy, so I could kind of go here. But for the sake of this video, we'll say he can't see those guys, right? He goes here, he goes into one guy. I only want him to go into this guy, and that's fine. My captain, he'll move in and fight because I feel like he's not going to die. Hey, Future Luke here. Just quickly, I talk about Thranduil as if he's D7 throughout this entire video, but he's actually D6, which does change things a little bit. However, just pretend as if he's D7 for the purposes of this video. Accept that. And yeah, I'll roll out the fights and we'll see where we are for the next turn, right? Battle has been done. Let's have a look, right? Casualties are over here. Rivendell lost 4 guys. Hall's lost 3. So, you know, pretty even. That's not too bad for either side, honestly. But, anyway, this is the position we're in after the first round of combat. Now, from the Rivendell side, there's actually a lot you can do here, right? From a heroic move standpoint, okay? The first, I mean, I'll go over the most simple and then I'll go over more bigger ideas that are a bit more scary. So I've saved this state anyway, so we can go back to it, right? Obviously, we're calling a heroic move here. Unless we're just, for the sake of this, we're assuming that we win the move off, right? Because we've set up for this potential move. There's a lot we could do with it. If you don't win, you know, you don't have many options regardless. You can obviously set up things to like still have things to do when you don't win a heroic move, and you should. But we're talking about this like specific examples where you do win, right? Because you should, you know, win some, hopefully. If you're not winning any, then I mean, good luck. But we call this move, we win the roll-off, of course. Our captain moves first, right? We've got all our heroes. Another important reason for you to be calling on like something like a captain or what have you instead of like your big hero, right? Is in this example, we want to kill Legolas, right? Because Thranduil, he's a bit more survivable. He's D7, 3 fate, 3 wounds, right? Legolas, I believe he's D5. He's a lot squishier. He might have 3 fate, 2 or 3 fate, but he's only got 2 wounds. Or maybe he's 3 fate, 2 wounds. I can't remember. But he's a lot easier to kill, right? In a single turn, anyway. So Captain, he gets everyone here up to these guys. We can just mark them. Not that it's going to be too relevant. He's just going to go in here. I think this is a good spot for him. Not that important. Anyway, this first one, as I said, we're going to be working out how can we kill Legolas here. Obviously, as you can see, Glorfindel can't get into Legolas here, right? There's not a gap, but because he didn't have to move first, because he wasn't the one that called the move, we can make room for him to be able to do that, right? So anyway, I'll come back when that's all done. All right, how can we get Glorfindel into Legolas here, right? Obviously, we have to move these guys kind of out of the way. He can see him. I'm going to... This guy's going to come here. I mean, you would have to do it in a way where you come around here into the control zone like that, of course. Can't enter that guy's control zone. This guy's going to come here. This gives me a gap where I can kind of enter over here. Right. Alright, everything's set up. Alright, I don't know why I bothered setting everything up over here because we're not even going to talk about it. But we're going to talk about the fight that is the center of this, obviously, which is Legolas versus Glorfindel, right? Obviously, Legolas is going to do his 3 shots into Glorfindel's horse. We'll just simulate it properly, right? To try and save his own life. All of them hit. Wounds on 5s. No wounds, of course. So they're going to fight, right? This is the ideal situation you want to set up. And I should have said earlier, another reason you don't want to be calling moves on a hero like Glorfindel over your captain is you always want as much might as you can have in reserves for dual rolls, especially important dual rolls, because you can turn a 3 into a 6 if it's really that important, right? So we've got this set up. Because we're so afraid of losing this battle line war, we're like, we want to do as much damage as we can realistically to kind of even the odds, right? Legolas is worth 100 points, right? So we'll roll Legolas's strikes first. He's 2 strikes. Another thing I should say is Legolas player probably strikes up here. Fight 6 against fight 8. Probably doesn't get above Glorfindel. The Glorfindel player can just safety strike up here as well if they're really that worried about it. Which is maybe a good idea. You know, it just depends, right? We're not going to focus too much on that. Just assume Glorfindel's higher fight here, which is often going to be the case. Legolas rolls. He rolls a 5. Reroll. Don't know if he can reroll that or not from Thranduil. Might only be warriors, but he's on a 5 high, right? Glorfindel, I would be two-handing in this situation, so keep that in mind for this roll. Gets a 6 anyway, right? Legolas is prones. I would roll all my strikes at the same time. Needing 4s to wound because of the 2-hand +1. And he is super dead. That is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can reroll this from Lord of the West. Still a 1. But 7 wounds. He's only got 2 wounds and 3 fates, so can't possibly survive. And Legolas is dead, right? And right there, you've just taken out 100 points pretty quick. And it's not only 100 points, but if you assume that Legolas, you know, this is second battle round, right? Legolas is a 3 might character. And say he spent 1 on... He's down to 2 from spending on the strike, right? You just took 2 might off the board. You know, he's got 3 left here and like 2 on this guy. So it's very significant. 100 points, all the stuff Legolas does. And you can do this just like the captains or whatever models, right? That's like the general idea of how to get to heroes that would otherwise... It feels like they're just so boxed in by all these warriors here and there. But calling a heroic move with, you know, a secondary character, so your primary kind of assassin, you can make way for them to move in, is what I'm really trying to get at here, right? But anyway, let's go back and I'll show you a couple more things you can do that are a bit more interesting. We're back here after the first round of combat. We're going to assume the same things, right? We win the move off here. Here's a nice little situation we can set up and get the most value out of our heroic move, right? He's going to go in here. I'm not going to do every single model like I did last time. It's not that important, right? We're just going to get the gist of what's happening here. This guy is going to tie up Legolas like this. Important that this gap exists here. This guy's just going to tie these guys up so they don't do anything annoying. This guy's going to go in here. I think this is how I want to do it. No, that doesn't matter. Yeah, like this. He's going to go in here and here. I will... well, firstly, it's important that Glorfindel goes here, okay? He goes into this warrior. I have to tie this guy up, otherwise he gets through the gap, and he tags Glorfindel, which I don't want. I need this gap to exist here, right? That's a very important gap to maintain. It is. Okay, this is all set up now, right? Here's what I've set up with this heroic move, right? When I kill... If I call a heroic combat with Glorfindel here against this one guy, which he will most... You know, he can kill him. It's one guy, right? It sets me up in a very unique situation where if this guy dies, I now have 2 places I can go. I have the higher fight value here, fight 8. I can go straight into Legolas, and as you saw just before, I could flash kill him. Or I could go straight into Thranduil, right? Where I have the higher fight still, and this is the general of the Hall's army, right? So what can my opponent do in this instance? He also has a couple of choices. He can strike up on both of these guys defensively, which for Thranduil, it will make him of a minimum of fight 8, if not higher, And I won't know as Glorfindel if he's going to be higher than me until I am fighting him, right? So it's mildly scary for me to even go for. Or he can call his own heroic combat to kind of get something going, but I don't think it would achieve too much here. He could move here, but then Glorfindel would come behind. It wouldn't be a good idea. He will probably lose his heroic combat, knowing Legolas, and he could move there. But even so, he would still get charged, right? So their only real options in this specific situation is to call up defensive strikes. And in the worst case scenario that they do this, they've just wasted 2 might, because you could just kill. If you're really that scared, you don't have to run into either of them. I would still run into Legolas, right? Even if he struck up, because it's not a big deal even if I lose that fight. Glorfindel's a big boy. And even this fight, I wouldn't be too scared of losing. But this idea, it forces a kind of checkmate of them having to spend a lot of resources to feel safe. And if they don't spend these resources, he's going to die. This general could be taking a wound, depending on how things go. This fight can still go either way regardless of the fight, you know what I mean? But do you really want to be risking your general like that? I don't know. I feel like you definitely called the strike here, right? So that's like a unique situation where you can really press your advantage of winning this move here and force a lot of resources out of your opponent, right? But anyway, I'll move on to one last example. Let me get back to where we were. Alright, we're back to the end of combat. I moved a couple of models around to better accommodate the example, right? But this time we're going to be playing from the Hall's perspective of how can you use a heroic move, or like priority, I guess, is possible as well, to kind of set up a situation where you can deal with a scary high fight model, right? I'm scared of Glorfindel because he's fight 8. I don't have anyone that's that high fight, right? But I still want to get rid of him, or at least, you know, cause some damage to him, right? What can I do here, right? So anyway, let's say this captain wins the move off, right? We're going to about here. Doesn't matter too much. He'll move. We'll just do what's important. Pulls with me, right? What can I do here, right? What I want to do is go in here, tie up these guys, and Glorfindel. Assume I pass the courage test because, yep. Glorfindel has terror, right? I feel like I could probably kill this captain with the right, so what I will do is this. Imagine this guy charged first. That's important. I think I can stack up and kill this captain. And I'm really going to... He's going to come in here and tie up these 2 guys. See, this is set up in a really dangerous way for the Rivendell player. Yeah, something like this, right? Legolas, in the new rules, Legolas is allowed to do this. In the old rules, because of this command zone here, this 1-inch zone, you wouldn't be allowed to do this. But because he's effectively being blocked off by models, this is now allowed, which is very, very cool, alright? But anyway, we're set up like this. I won't do the rest, right? So let's just assume, right? This is going to be a lot of damage into this captain. Now, here's what you do, right? Legolas is going to call the heroic combat, and Thranduil is going to call a heroic strike, right? So let's just assume Glorfindel doesn't call a combat of his own, which is risky, because yeah, he could win, and then he could go here, or something, and really mess up this situation. But if he fails, if he loses the heroic combat roll-off, he's going to have guys coming in. Like, Thranduil's probably going to strike higher than him, and he's going to be in a lot of danger, right? So maybe the safest thing for him to do here would be call a preemptive strike. But if he wants to gamble on a 50-50, he can call his own combat, right? Let's just assume he calls his own strike defensively, right? You've got combat and strike here. The cool thing about this is when this heroic combat happens first, because it has to happen first, you roll the strike when the combat starts, right? So here, I can see what Thranduil gets. He gets a 5, so he goes up to fight 10, right? And Glorfindel, even though Glorfindel's called a strike, he doesn't know what he goes up to. So I've seen this, and I'm now confident. I've got the maximum, like, you know, fight value. I'm confident to go into Glorfindel now, right? Because he can get 10 as well, but I'm confident that I'm not going to low roll my strike, right? That's the point of this. If I had rolled a 1, like let's just say I roll a 1 here, and that would make me equal with him. Then when I win this combat, I know I'm only struck up on a 1. Maybe I should just go like here, right? We'll just say this combat happens, this captain dies. If I'm struck up, you know, fight value 10, it's like, hell yeah, I'm going to go here and here. Glorfindel's going to roll his. He goes up to 10 as well. But hey, maybe he rolls a 1 or 2 and we're actually higher than him. But hey, even's fine. So all of a sudden you have this advantageous fight to you right here. Because you were able to get the information that you had rolled a high strike before you put yourself in danger, right? But like I said, if I rolled a 1 here, and I'm like, oh, I don't feel too good about this anymore. I don't feel too good about engaging Glorfindel because I'm even fight at best. Well, not even fight at best. I'm losing because he's +1 from his own strike, right? So I would just go Legolas into there, Thranduil into here. You're getting the value of killing more warriors, right? He called a strike that is now not going to be used at all. So you wasted 1 of his might and you're still killing stuff, doing damage. You know, you kill the captain up here. That's a lot of, it's like 75 points, you know. But yeah, that's the general idea of, you know, ways you can get a lot of value out of your heroic moves if you just set up properly and preemptively to be able to call these kind of moves where you're really benefiting all your models instead of just kind of calling moves to get better positioning. You know what I mean? I mean, that is what this is, but you understand what I'm saying. You get your big pieces that can do a lot of damage, and you want to be able to make them go to the places that you want them to get to, which can feel really hard when a battle line is so clogged, but you can do it. You just got to win those 50-50 move-offs, right? And you'll eventually win one, right? Just keep setting up potential good move-offs. Keep as safe as you can, and eventually you'll win a move-off, and just be ready for when you're in a position to actually do a lot of damage, like you have seen in some of these examples. But yeah, that'll be all from me for this video. Leave some comments if you have any ideas for, you know, other stuff, if you like seeing this kind of stuff. And thanks. Yeah, thanks for watching.